Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. My pleasure to have with us here today co-author Stephen Dubner, best-selling New York Times best-selling author, and this time around is SuperFreakonomics: Global Cooling, Patriotic, Prostitutes, and Why Suicide Bombers Should Buy Life Insurance is the name of the book. Stephen, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. Hey, so a little time, so let's dive right into this. Patriotic, Prostitutes. Should we have one on every corner?
Well, I don't know. That's not for me to say, but what we did learn is that in Chicago, at least, when we gathered up a whole bunch of data on street prostitutes, we found that among them, some of their favorite days of the year are the 4th of July long weekend and even Memorial Day. And it turns out the reason why is that this one neighborhood that we studied, the Park in Washington Park in Chicago, was flooded by folks having big parties and particularly family reunions.
Right.
Well, apparently, when you're having a big family reunion, catching up with your Aunt Ida and having potato salad aren't exciting enough to keep you going. So
Sure.
people go search of prostitutes. So it turns out that prostitutes flood the area because there's a much higher wage during that time.
Right.
And it turns out that even women who are not working during the year as prostitutes come aboard then.
Sure. All right, so you got to know your market, right, here, Stephen? I mean, know your market.
Exactly right.
And where to go, because let's face it, Uncle Joe, he's going to say, hey, listen, there's a smoking area now, and designating smoking area is like, I'm going to go have a Joe, and I'll be back. Give me, 27 minutes. And
now you know where Uncle Joe's going. And if he comes back with a smile on his face, you're sure where he went.
Sure. And if he says, no, never mind, I won't get into that. It's a family show. All right, so which adds more value, pimp or realtor?
Well, it turns out that the short answer is the pimp.
Yeah.
So we measured the value that a pimp provides for prostitutes, which is obviously an illegal industry, versus the value that a realtor provides for home sellers, which is obviously a legal industry.
Yeah.
And it turns out that you get more value if you're looking at these just purely as agents. All different kinds of industries have agents. If you compare from industry to industry, turns out that a pimp, you pay a lot bigger commission than you pay a realtor. Pimps are about 25%. Realtors are only 5 or 6%. But if you add how much value they provide, turns out the pimps do a little bit better.
Right. Now, you actually did some numbers on prostitutes, and how many women have become prostitutes, or what are the numbers on that?
Well, these days, it's much fewer than it was. What we did that's really very interesting, at least to us, was we looked at prostitution 100 years ago versus today.
Okay.
And we did this in the context, I don't mean to make it sound that this is just all a prurient interest. It's actually a very interesting labor question. If you think about, women in the marketplace, obviously opportunities have gotten much better for women in this past century, much better.
Sure,
and there are a lot of consequences of that. One consequence is that the level of school teaching seems to have fallen. In other words, it used to be that 55% of college-educated women became school teachers, a huge amount. But then as many of those best and brightest women went into other professions, fewer of the best and brightest were going into teaching, and therefore the quality of teaching went down. Similarly, we see that 100 years ago, the percentage of women who became prostitutes was remarkably high. In some cities, it might be 1 in every 50 people of a certain age range were becoming prostitutes. Why? In part because the wage was very, very high 100 years ago.
Right.
It's fallen a whole lot now. The reason we give that it's fallen so much is because of competition from essentially free premarital sex. That's the result of the sexual revolution.
Sure.
It used to be that men, when they wanted to have sex, had to pay for it, and now it's less so.
It's amazing, and it just occurred to me that I've been paying so much for tutoring, while all the matter, I could have got it for $50. I don't know. Stephen, I'm trying to figure this out. The math is not working up for me. All right, so what about male prostitutes? Any rise in that on that side?
We didn't. We looked into it some. There's just so very little of it.
Yeah.
There's the biggest male prostitution market is for male clients as well.
Yeah.
We did not find anything particularly reliable or large about in the data there, so we didn't pursue it. One kind of byproduct of another study that we found was that HIV transmission among male prostitutes, among homosexual male prostitutes, is relatively very high compared to female prostitutes, which isn't that surprising, but the data do back up the conventional wisdom in that case. I mean, a lot of what we do are look at data and see that the conventional wisdom is wrong, that's a case where it was right.
Yeah, I wonder if the barrier of entry is just stiffer for male prostitutes in that area, and that's why, it may be the numbers are much less. All right, so let's move on to global cooling. Bust by way of fairy tale eco-environmentalists or a promising future?
Well, this is a big topic. It's a complex topic, and most of all, it's a topic about which people have a huge amount of emotion and ideology, and there's a whole lot of money at stake. So what we try to do is just kind of pull it all apart and look at global warming from a different perspective. And what we see is this. The scope of the problem is very uncertain. We really just don't know. And when you're dealing with any science or any reality in which the uncertainty is high, there's a lot of irrationality introduced into it. We try to propose the following question. If global warming is a really big problem,
right,
if warming itself is a problem that could be catastrophically dangerous, what do you do about it? And our answer is that the current proposed solution of a very expensive and a very interventionalist carbon mitigation plan is probably not going to be very effective. It'll be expensive, it'll be hard. As we're seeing right now in Copenhagen, it's going to be very hard to get people to agree to do something that doesn't benefit them so much. But also, it probably wouldn't really address the problem very directly. We propose some other solutions, things that are called geoengineering, which to some people might sound scary, but the idea is if human ingenuity got us into this problem, in other words, we figured out you could burn fossil fuels and have this world where 7 billion people live, then can human ingenuity get us out of it? So some solutions include spraying sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere to kind of create this stratoshield to cool things off. It sounds weird, just the way it might sound weird that a medical vaccine you actually give someone a version of the disease you're trying to avoid in order to give yourself a vaccination.
Well, and I think the problem with some of this is that I don't want to say this too harshly, but it seems that you have lunacy way on the left and lunacy way on the right, and somewhere in the middle is sanity. But it just seems to me that the eco-green side has all this lunacy, and of course now with the Climate Gate, et cetera, coming out, it's a tough sell.
It is a tough sell, I tell you. The shame of it is, as you just pinpointed, the minute an issue becomes political, you can wave rationality goodbye. And so I think if anybody who's listening and you really want to be responsible, you want to be informed, you want to be smart, I think the agenda that people need to pursue is what I would call a kind of rational environmentalism. And what that means, of course we all want to protect the earth. Of course we would all like to pollute less. Of course we would like to have cleaner, better, cheaper energy in the future.
Agreed.
But if you embrace too hard one argument or the other, you're bound to miss essentially where the real issue lays, which is that, should we flagellate ourselves every day for being on the earth and burning fossil fuels? I don't think we should.
Right.
On the other hand, should we pretend that, burning fuel round the clock, which has a lot of consequences, that we shouldn't do anything about that? No, I don't think you should think that way either.
All right, we got about a minute left, I think. Is it possible for suicide bombers to buy life insurance? And if not, will Congress mandate their ability to have access to it?
We did a study with a British bank trying to find suicide bombers through looking at banking data of millions of people, and found a variety of markers which, when you add them up into an algorithm, can be pretty effective at finding suspicious people. One thing that a potential suicide bomber does not do is buy life insurance. Why? Because it would not pay out if he or she committed suicide in the commission of a terrorist act. Therefore, if you want to throw people like us off your trail, you might want to consider it.
All right, SuperFreakonomics is the name of the book. Global Cooling, Patriotic, Prostitutes, and Why Suicide Bombers Should Buy Life Insurance so they can fly under the radar, of course. And we have co-author Stephen Dubner with us today. Stephen, where can we buy a copy today?
I think any bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all those guys. So everybody should have it.
All right, Stephen, thanks for your time today on Traders Nation. Really appreciate it, okay?
My pleasure. Thank you.
You betcha. Stephen Dubner, SuperFreakonomics, Global Cooling, Patriotic, Prostitutes, and Why Suicide Bombers Should Buy Life Insurance. Get a copy today. Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, your favorite bookstore. Whatever you do, just go out, get a copy today. Christmas is right around the corner. Great stocking stuffer for anybody out there.